Hi, welcome back to another Dear Laura, Ask Laura, Beg Laura, Talk to Laura. I am here for you, Laura. I am the founder of Front Office Rocks, and we are getting so many conversations started that I really appreciate you listening. Whether you're listening on the podcast or on social media, wherever you are, thank you for reaching out to me and asking the questions that happen in your dental office. So, today, in this episode, I do two questions in an episode, but these two questions are very similar. So I'm going to read both questions, and then I'm going to have the whole podcast, the whole interview, the whole part of this about this subject. So first is, I work at the front desk of a dental office, and many times I have a patient standing in front of me while the phone is ringing. I, of course, want to take care of both things at once, but my doctor tells me I should only deal with the patient in front of me and let the phone go to voicemail and we can call them back. What are your thoughts on that? So that's the first question. So thank you very much for sending that in. The second question is same thing or same topic, which it has to do with hold. Many times we get busy at the front desk of the dental office, so we have to put our patients on hold. What do you think about the hold message, what it should say, and how long it's appropriate to put a patient on hold? Both of those topics have to do with putting the phone on hold, dealing with the patients in front of you. So I thought I'd read them both and we'll just kind of talk about it. So working in a dental office, we know we have to learn how to multitask. We have to learn how to prioritize, the patients in front of us, the phone ringing, the toilet overflowing, the hygienist wanting to know where their patient is. That's just what we do in the front office. However, we also want to give our patients the attention and the service that they deserve. So let's talk about the situation of the first question where there's a patient in front of you and a phone ringing. Yes, the patient in front of you is the priority. Yes, the patient in front of you is important. Yes, the patient in front of you, we're trying to check them out, let's just say from their appointment, get them scheduled for their next appointment, take care of balances or whatever, and reappoint them for the next appointment. But the phone is also ringing. Now, if I were to just follow the philosophy that the dentist is telling you, and not to disagree with your dentist, but let me just explain what my thoughts are with this, that this person in front of me is important, but so is that phone, right? Because we pay thousands of dollars to make our phone ring. We pay thousands of dollars marketing and follow-up emails and reactivation and recare to get people to call us. So if I ignore that phone, that is our lifeline to the outside. We have done something to make that phone ring. And if I don't answer the phone, I'm not prioritizing the importance of that phone. I'm not prioritizing the importance of that potential new patient or a current patient. So I've got to be able to balance both. I've got to be able to handle the patient in front of me and also handle the phone. So what my suggestion is with this, and please listen to this whole thing because I have some disclaimers in here. My suggestion is when a patient's standing in front of you and the phone rings, that you say to the patient, would you mind 2 seconds? Let me grab this call. Most patients are going to say, no problem, go ahead, grab the phone. And you're going to say, thank you for calling the doctor's office. This is Laura. How may I help you? Okay. When that person on the phone gets started, you're not going to start a whole conversation with the phone. You're not just going to go off and start handling their issues and talking about all that. You're going to find out why they're calling, get their name and number. If nobody around can handle and help you with that call, get their name and number, explain to them that you're checking a patient out and that you will give them a call back within 15 minutes or whatever the time frame is, 5 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever. But you're going to find out who they are, why they're calling, what their name and number is, introduce yourself and tell them you'll call them back. Then you're going to call that patient back and you're going to take care of the patient in front of you. Now, most people in front of you are going to say, no problem, grab that call. Unless they're Joe the jerk patient, I like to call them. We all have some Joe the jerk patients. That's a whole nother video and podcast about, do we actually need to be the dentist for Joe the jerk patients? But there are some people out there would have a problem, but 95% of the patients in front of you are going to say, sure, go ahead and handle that call. Now, you need to have a system in your practice so that doesn't happen 6 and 7 times during a checkout. You need to have a system in your practice so that if the phones are ringing somebody else is trained to be able to help answer the phones, or you have an outsourced company that you can let the phones go to them if you can't get it, so that somebody's answering it. But that phone call is just as important as the patient in front of you. Okay. Now, another thing about this, as you could tell, this is one of my favorite topics. Another thing about this is, let's assume this patient in front of you is, you're checking the patient out and the phone rings, and it rings, and it rings, and it rings, and you're not answering it. This patient is subconsciously watching you not respond to that phone call. Have you ever been, it happens a lot when I check into hotels, where I'm checking in and the phone's ringing, 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 ringing. And it's like, do you not hear that phone ringing? Like, did you want me to get it? Right? The patient is seeing you ignore the phone. Now, when the patient leaves and they call back to your practice in the future, let's say they're calling to move an appointment or pay a bill, and they call your office and it rings and rings and rings and rings, what memory are they going to remember? They're going to remember you ignoring the call when they were in the practice with you. Do you see how this plays into, we have to make both patients feel like a priority, which means we need to ask this patient 1 second if we can answer this call. Answer this call, take a message, and call the patient back. If it's happening a lot, figure out a system to get people on the team to help answer the phone, or forward your phone somewhere else. But once in a while, it's okay. Now, when you ask to take a message and call them back, the next most important thing when you're done checking this patient out is call them back. Call them back in the time you say you're going to call them. Because if you tell them you're going to call them back in 10 minutes, 30 minutes, 15 minutes, and it's 4 hours later and you're like, oh, I forgot to call that patient back, then that's bad customer service. But if you explain to them you're checking a patient out, they understand, they're expecting a phone call back from you, call them back. Okay. Now, the second question was about putting a patient on hold and the voicemail message and how long to put them on hold. Here's my thing about that. I don't think patients should be put on hold. I believe that we should be able to address the scenario. Maybe you have to put them on hold to transfer a call or get a quick answer. But what happens many times is, when we put a patient on hold or a person on hold, they're on hold longer than we anticipate. They're on hold longer than we planned when we put them on hold. So let me go back to the scenario of the patient in front of me and the phone call. If the patient's standing in front of me and I answer the phone and I said, do you mind please holding? And I put them on hold, I have the idea that this patient's going to be a quick checkout, right? We're almost done. I'm just going to give them their appointment card and then I'm going to go back to the phone call. But inevitably, we all know that that patient in front of you now is going to start the, hey, I got an EOB from my insurance. Can you explain why they didn't cover the last appointment? Oh, and by the way, my 3 kids need to schedule their appointments, and I'd like to see if, and next thing you know, this checkout turns into a 10-minute checkout and you've got a patient on hold. Okay. That is why I do not prefer to put a patient on hold. And on top of that, to us, maybe the patient's on hold 5 minutes. To us, it seems like 30 seconds, right? We're in the middle of doing something. We know we have someone on hold. We're trying to get to it. We're trying to go as fast as we can. This patient's on hold. But have you ever been the person on the other side of the phone when you're put on hold? 5 minutes seems like 50 minutes, right? You're waiting. You're maybe trying to get out of the car to go pick up your kids. You're waiting for them to answer the call. It seems a lot longer when you're the patient on the other side. Okay. So it is my preference to not put a patient on hold. Now, voice the recordings when you put them on hold. I'm a fan. That's fine. If you want to put a recording on there, that's way better than dead silence. Please don't put the awful music that we have, like when you call a credit card company and the music's playing and you're like, this same song has played 46 times. Like, be conscious of that, because that is a patient experience. If somebody has to sit on hold, what are they experiencing when they're on hold? But also be conscious. I have called into a dental office actually trying to reach a dentist recently, and their recording talked about ask us about Invisalign. We do sedation dentistry. We have new patient specials. Like, they have this little recording that's like a little marketing piece, which is great. But I heard the same recording 4 times while I sat on hold. Like, it went through, by the time the doctor got on, I was thinking, I don't really care that you have Invisalign, right? So be conscious of what the customer or the patient is hearing when they're on hold, because having an on hold message does not take away from the fact that somebody is waiting for you to get to the call. And that is the most important thing about this. People do not like to wait. People want to be taken care of. So training is key when it comes to this. You got to get good at taking care of the customer in front of you, the patient in front of you, and being able to control that phone, because at the front office, everything seems to happen at once. So I hope that kind of answers your question about what's the priority. They're both the priority. Have a system in place so you're not the only one answering the phone. So you have backup system, and then make sure that you're doing everything you can to avoid putting a patient on hold, because people don't like to wait. So I hope that helped both of you guys with your questions. I know you're not the only ones. We all deal with this all the time. Many times when I'm in the office and things are going on, I'm thinking, am I being recorded? Am I being tested? Because inevitably everything always happens at once. So I get it. Do the best you can, but realize the importance is for both of those patients. And until next time, thank you for joining me again, and I will see you on our next episode.